We all know Zlatan. We know he doesn't usually hand out praise, and even less so when it comes to comparisons with Messi. But after watching one of Messi's sons play, he dropped a phrase that says, "much more than it seems." Today we're not here to exaggerate. We're here to analyze what he really meant. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, one of the most iconic and controversial legends of world football, has just been part of a historic moment that could mark the beginning of something big. And no, we're not talking about another one of his impossible goals or his usual incendiary statements. This time, the Swede was present at a much more intimate, yet equally meaningful event, the awards ceremony of an Inter-Miami Under-8 tournament. And who was the protagonist? None other than Ciro Messi, Lionel Messi's son, who won the award for top scorer of the tournament. But what really set social media on fire wasn't just the trophy. It was the words Zlatan chose to describe the young champion. Get ready, because we're going to analyze every detail of this moment. We'll talk about the Messi family and sporting context, about the relationship between Zlatan and Leo, and above all, we'll ask the million-dollar question: are we witnessing the birth of a new dynasty in world football? But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell so you don't miss any content, and of course, leave a comment telling me what you think. Does Ciro have a future in elite football, or is it too much pressure for a child who's only 7 years old? Let's get into it. Picture the scene, an apparently routine event, the award ceremony of a children's tournament. Excited kids, proud parents, the typical festive atmosphere of these celebrations. But suddenly, everything changes when Zlatan Ibrahimovic appears to hand over the trophy to the top scorer. And there he was, Ciro Messi, just 7 years old, walking onto the stage, with that mix of shyness and excitement that only children can express. The contrast was cinematic. The imposing Zlatan, standing 1.96 meters tall with his overwhelming presence, handing a trophy to a little boy who barely reached his waist. But what no one expected was what Zlatan was about to say. True to his direct style, no filters, no unnecessary diplomacy, the Swede dropped the bomb. If you want to see a miniature version of Messi, look at Ciro. Boom! Social media exploded, headlines everywhere across sports outlets. And when Zlatan speaks, the world listens. But this time, it wasn't one of his typical boasts about himself. It wasn't another, "I came, I saw, I conquered." This time, Zlatan was putting his seal of approval on the son of the man many consider the greatest player in history. And he didn't stop there. Zlatan added, "This kid has a great future ahead of him." Simple words, but with enormous weight coming from someone like Ibrahimovic, a player who competed for the best clubs in the world, who won titles in practically every major European league, and who never ever gives praise for free. Little Ciro accepted his trophy with a shy smile, probably without fully grasping the magnitude of the moment. But for the millions of fans who watched the video, for the sports media, and especially for those who closely follow Lionel Messi's career, this was a moment for the history books. Before we continue, let's talk a bit about who this child is, the one who has just captured the attention of the football world. Ciro Messi Roccuzzo was born on March 10, 2018, the third son of Lionel Messi and Antonella Roccuzzo. His older brothers are Thiago, born in 2012, and Matteo, born in 2015. From the day he was born, Ciro has been surrounded by football, growing up in an environment where the ball is practically another member of the family. At just 7 years old, Ciro is already part of Inter-Miami's youth categories, the dynasty, same club where his father currently plays and where he is building his legacy in MLS. And no, he's not there just because of his last name. Coaches and those who have watched him play agree that he has natural footballing ability. In this recent Under-8 tournament, Ciro proved his credentials by scoring several goals and leading his team with performances that drew attention, not just because of who his father is, but because of the real quality he showed on the pitch. His vision, his skill on the ball, and yes, certain movements that inevitably remind people of his father, were enough for him to earn the top scorer award. But beyond the numbers and trophies, what's interesting is how Ciro is growing up in an environment completely different from his father's. While Leo grew up in Rosario, Argentina, facing economic hardships and an expensive medical treatment for his growth hormone deficiency, Ciro is growing up in Miami in a privileged environment, but also one with immense media pressure. To fully understand the weight of Zlatan's words, we need to talk about the relationship between these two football giants. Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Lionel Messi shared a locker room at Barcelona during the 2009-2010 season. And let's be honest, it wasn't exactly a honeymoon. Zlatan arrived at Barca as one of Europe's biggest stars, coming from Inter Milan with an ego as big as Camp Nou and the belief that he would be the centerpiece of the club's project. But he encountered a different reality. At Barcelona, everything revolved around Messi. Guardiola had built a system where Leo was the sun and everyone else were planets orbiting around him. For someone with Zlatan's personality, accustomed to always being the absolute protagonist, this was hard to swallow. In his autobiography, Zlatan held nothing back. He talked about feeling sidelined, about how the system favored Messi, about tensions with Guardiola. There were spicy comments, like when he said Guardiola treated him like a Ferrari but drove him like a Fiat. However, and this is crucial, Zlatan never questioned Messi's quality as a player. Even at his most critical moments toward Barcelona and Guardiola, the Swede always acknowledged that he was dealing with a football genius. And over the years, with maturity and distance, that perspective has only become clearer. Today, more than a decade after their time together at Barcelona, we see a Zlatan who not only respects Messi, but openly admires him. His comments about the Argentine have evolved from specific criticisms of Barca's system to absolute recognition of Leo's greatness. And now, seeing him hand a trophy to Messi's son, praising him publicly, comparing him to his father, it's a beautiful closing of the circle. It's Zlatan, with all his history and legendary ego, bowing to the Messi legacy and validating the possibility that it could continue into the next generation. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: pressure. Being Lionel Messi's son must be, at the same time, a blessing and an almost impossible burden to measure. On one hand, you have access to the best coaches, top-level facilities, and advice from the greatest player in history, literally at home. On the other hand, every time you touch the ball, every movement, every goal, every mistake will be compared to one of the most extraordinary players this sport has ever produced. Ciro is 7 years old. He's at an age when football should be pure fun, playing with friends, getting excited about scoring a goal, learning the basics. But inevitably, there are expert eyes analyzing every match, cameras recording his plays, articles speculating about whether or not he inherited his father's talent. And now, after Zlatan's words, that pressure has multiplied exponentially. When a world football legend publicly says that you're a miniature version of Messi and that you have a great future ahead, you're placing expectations on the shoulders of a 7-year-old that very few adults could handle. Football history is full of sons of great players who never reached their father's level, not because they lacked talent, but because pressure, constant comparisons, and excessive expectations became too much. Think of cases like Jordi Cruyff, son of Johan Cruyff, who had a respectable career but never came close to his father's level, or Diego Sinagra, Maradona's son, whose career was marked more by family controversies than sporting achievements. Even Cesare Maldini was a great player, but it was his son Paolo who ended up surpassing his father's legacy. The point is, there are no guarantees. Talent is not automatically inherited, and burdening a child with expectations based on what their parent achieved can be counterproductive. Lionel Messi, for his part, has been extremely careful about his children's media exposure. In multiple interviews, he has made it clear that his 3 sons play football because they like it, because they enjoy it, but that he will never pressure them to follow his professional path. They do what they want, Leo has said more than once. If they want to play football, perfect. If they prefer to do something else, that's perfect too. What matters is that they're happy. Antonella Rocuzzo, his wife, has followed a similar approach, trying to give their children the most normal childhood possible, despite the extraordinary circumstances they grow up in. On social media, we see family moments, Ciro and his brothers enjoying everyday activities, playing, having fun, being kids. Tiago, the oldest, shows a strong interest in football and is already more involved in training. Matteo, the middle one, is known for his more rebellious and playful personality, less focused on following the rules. And Ciro, the youngest, seems to be finding his own path, showing abilities that naturally draw attention, but still at an age where everything is a game. The question is, will Leo and Antonella be able to maintain that protection, that space of normalcy, when the entire world is already placing labels on Ciro? How much longer can Ciro be just a kid playing football before becoming the future heir to the Messi throne? So let's return to the question we posed at the beginning. Are we witnessing the birth of a new Messi dynasty in world football? Or is it too early, too unfair, to place such expectations on a child? The honest answer is that both things can be true at the same time. Yes, Ciro may have talent. Yes, he may have natural ability, access to the best resources, and direct guidance from the greatest player in history. Those are real, undeniable advantages. But it's also true that he is a 7-year-old child who deserves to live his childhood and enjoy football without the pressure of becoming the second coming of his father. He deserves space to make mistakes, to experiment, to eventually decide whether football is truly his passion or if he prefers another path. What is certain is that the world will be watching. Every step Ciro takes will be documented, analyzed, and commented on. And that, regardless of talent, is a lot for anyone to handle, especially a child. My personal opinion, and I want to be clear that it's just that, an opinion, is that we should give Ciro space to simply be a kid playing football. Celebrate his achievements without blowing them out of proportion. Acknowledge his talent without constantly comparing him to one of the greatest figures in sports history. If in 10 or 15 years Ciro Messi becomes an elite professional footballer, that will be wonderful. If he decides football isn't his thing and chooses another career, that should be perfectly fine too. And if he ends up being a decent but not extraordinary player, that shouldn't be seen as a failure either. The real success, in my view, will be if Ciro can develop as a person and as a player if he chooses to be one on his own terms, writing his own story instead of constantly being measured against his father's. In the meantime, we'll keep seeing moments like this. Zlatan handing out trophies, the media generating headlines, and a 7-year-old navigating a path that no one else has had to walk in quite this way. What do you think? Does Ciro have what it takes to follow in his father's footsteps? Or should we give him space and time before making any predictions? Leave your thoughts in the comments.